After Donald Trump's doubling down on the claim that Volodymyr Zelensky is an unelected dictator, Europeans stating their backing for Ukraine's president. Campaigning ahead of Sunday's general election in Germany, Chancellor Olaf Scholz stating that Ukraine's a democracy and that it's Russia that's to blame for the war. Sentiments echoed by the president of the European Council, Antonio Costa, who spoke to France 24's Caroline de Camaret ahead of Monday's third anniversary of Vladimir Putin's all-out invasion.
I will be in Ukraine next Monday. The President of the European Commission and the Commissioners will also be there to reinforce our support to Ukraine, as we've been doing from the very first day of the war and throughout the last 3 years. We will support Ukraine no matter what, even if the war does unfortunately continue. We want to achieve peace, and we will also support Ukraine afterwards, as its future lies within the EU.
And for more, let's cross now to Kethevane Gorjestani from our International Affairs Desk. Kethevane, the Europeans going to Kyiv on Monday to show support, just as the UK Prime Minister gets set to plead Ukraine's case in Washington. The UK Prime Minister most probably now flanked by France's president.
Yes, that part still unconfirmed by the French side, even though it has been announced now twice by the Trump administration. The first time it was Mike Waltz. The second time it was Donald Trump himself, who said that Emmanuel Macron would be coming on Monday. But the French still keeping pretty mum about it. But it seems that this is likely going to happen at the start of next week. UK and France going to Washington together. If that actually happens, it does seem like they are trying to show up and have sort of strength in numbers, to not go at it alone, to meet with Donald Trump. We don't know how this is all going to work out. Will there be a joint visit with Donald Trump? But at least the message that it's sending, the symbolism that it's sending, is that the Europeans are getting together and are actually working together and talking together before going to speak to Washington. And at the same time, as you said, the fact that the European leadership is going to be in Kyiv, there's sort of all fronts type of approach by the Europeans, who want right now to show that they are being active, they're being proactive in trying to figure out how to go forward when it comes to Ukraine.
And if you have Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron, Donald Trump in the room, that's all three of NATO's nuclear powers sitting down together. What can Starmer and Macron offer Trump so that there's a measure of climb down from these maximalist statements that we've heard?
Well, look, one part of Donald Trump's position and criticism towards the European is that the Europeans don't do enough to defend their own continent. We've heard, of course, the question about the percentage of the GDP spent on defense when it comes to NATO members, and the fact that he believes that the Europeans are not doing enough to support Ukraine. And there's now multiple reports in the British media talking about this potential plan led by the UK and by France for a sort of reassurance force. It's not a peacekeeping force. It's not a sort of battle force. This is something that would likely be set up in case there is an actual peace deal. So we're not there just yet, but sort of showing their options for a potential security guarantee that Zelensky has been calling for. What would that involve, according to these reports? One, it would be minimal troops on the ground. We've heard Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron talk about their willingness to send some of their troops to Ukraine. They would not be near the front line, and there would be probably fewer than 30,000 troops, mostly to protect infrastructure in Ukraine. And that force would also likely be concentrated also on areas of technical superiority. For example, the Navy, maybe the air power along the eastern flank of NATO. But there are still many sticking points. One, we've heard even Volodymyr Zelensky talking many times about what he sees as the right number of forces that would be a sort of deterrent to Russia, and he puts it at around 100,000 to 150,000. We'll see what he says about this. It's also unclear what the precondition that this plan would involve, according to those media reports, is a U.S. backstop. So it's sort of background support from the Americans. Will the Americans accept that? We've heard Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, say no troops on the ground. Maybe that would be an aerial support for that reassurance force. We'll see where that goes. And finally, the biggest sticking point of all, of course, is the position of the Russians. We heard Sergei Lavrov being extremely clear about their position on that. They will not accept any presence of NATO member forces in Ukraine, no matter what flag they are under. So even if they're not a NATO force, if they are a member state of NATO, they will consider that unacceptable.